they're messy. They are. The only thing that you can really do about that is be diligent about reminding your kids and modeling. They're messy. They're messy. Best intentions, they're messy. It just is what it is. So, yeah, just want to say that. One of the next things that Lucy talks about in here is having your work dated. And we've never gotten a date stamp. I know she talks a lot about a date stamp. We just always have our date up. Like that's one of my morning things. It's just in a spot where the kids always know. And I write the date. So I'll write, 2, 12, 13. And so they know when they sit down to do their work, that's the first thing they do before they write or they make their sketch. They write the date and then they keep writing. And she just talks about the importance of that so that the kids can look back and so that you can look back and parents can look back and see how much they've grown. It's so fun to see, too. So you can just see how much their writing has changed and how they've improved as writers. And that's a mini lesson as well. This is the date, this is why it's important, this is how we put it on our paper, it's not a big thing, it's a small thing, this is what it tells us. Yeah. And does anybody use a date stamp? Does anybody have a system?
I do. And the kids really like it, but to be honest, I haven't looked in a while, but 2 years ago, I spent a lot of time looking, and I could not find a decent one. I returned two at Office Depot. They're hard to find. Maybe now it's better. But then my colleague, Angela Fisher, actually had two. And she's like, here, I've got two, use one. And I'm still using that one.
And like, is it like the little one where you like spin the little one?
Yeah.
Like the ones that we used to have in libraries and stuff?
Yeah.
One of those.
I just looked on, I don't know, once I hear it, I have to do it, but, like on Google, they're like $5, $4.
Oh,
That's really reasonable.
Yeah. Very novel. I mean, kids love it. Do they love it? Yeah.
No, this is a refillable one. With a bottle of ready. Not
Do you want one at the dollar store? It's just the kind, they have to have an ink pad though. It's the roll kind, but
Yeah.
they just stamp it in an ink pad.
Oh, they have them at the dollar store.
At the dollar store.
Yeah.
Right now.
Everybody's going for
Yeah.
Which one? South, north, where are we going?
And there again, I would say if you're K, you might want that motor practice and that idea that the 5 means it tells us what month it is, and that middle number tells us how many days we've had, and that much. You might want that daily repetition of that. First and second, over that. Now we want to have some fun, and there's still, but to really drive it and hit it home, you might want to have the writing it. So there again.
I would hold it.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's see more maintenance and ours to do the dates.
And I suppose that too, it depends on the group. You know,
Depends on
because
your
there
group.
again, it's a
Yes.
tool and it's a flow.
Yeah, and the group I had just didn't handle it well, so.
No, I can't.
But they handled where she's got them and it's 4 people, they and I can't.
It's an interesting learning point too, like I had a student that came to sex just last year, he like created, he's like, that's not, we do the day before.
Yeah.
And so it was really fun, the whole kids were all excited about it, they're like, can we write it the Mexico way? Okay, yes, that was just fun, just, I think writing the date
Yeah. But those are cool lessons too, aren't they? Yeah. But that they still give us the same information, but that it looks a little bit different. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. That is fun. Into the materials? We're going into the materials? Yes. Yeah. Hey, hurry on, Allie, help me out. 32, we just talked about the dated part. One of the next parts that we're kind of interested what you guys do, on the top of 32, kind of on the right top side, she talks a lot about author celebrations, and the way that Lucy makes it sound is how she suggests to do it is like every month or every unit, so they're doing them very often. Do you guys do anything like that, or how does yours look? Just interested to know about.
We did kind of like a gallery opening.
Ooh, that's fun. Ooh.
And so that was really fun. We got cheese and crackers.
Oh my goodness.
And, when I was young, I went to every gallery opening because my mom worked for big. So we kind of modeled it after that, and then they had their finished pieces displayed on their desk, and we invited different people in our school to come, and they would kind of mingle. I taught them about etiquette, some etiquette things, and what that should look like, and how you go up and visit with somebody at an opening.
Oh my
We played
goodness.
music, and I had them come in, and when they came in, they had their little fancy juice, and they had their, it was so funny. I was laughing inside, but they loved it. And they couldn't mingle.
What grade was that?
That was third.
Third, okay. See, I did better. I did a better job at fifth and sixth. I haven't done anything fun at first.
Like what Olivia's talking about is really
Yeah.
quite grand.
We did
But
like
it can be-
license and.
It can
Yeah.
be very little and still have some
And
love
she-
like ripple effect.
And she mentions that, like, you start out small and
Yeah,
get
That
bigger.
was towards, we did kind of one in the middle of the year, and then we did one towards the end of the year, and we invited, the first one we did was a little bit more laid back, but they, by the end of the year, we invited other older kids to come in, and then they would comment with sticky notes on their writing. They'll go to different people's writing and
So
comment.
did they have one or two writing notes, or did they have, how,
Did they choose their best to edit? What piece did they bring to the
or did they
gallery?
bring?
Yeah, they chose their piece that
Just
they
one.
wanted to have on it. And our rule is you had to have, everybody needed someone to be at when the music, I think, when we turned down the music, then they'd find a desk and they'd sit down and read it, and they truly read the work, and then they would leave a comment. And then the music would come up a little loud, a little bit higher, and then they would mingle and eat their cheese and crackers. My mom would have been proud. But it was fun, and then we did it again.
And now the whole thing was a learning experience.
Yeah, because a lot of adults don't even know how to go to an opening or things like that, so.
Yeah, I like
that.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. We might have to do classic show.
Well, it was
Yes.
And they went home and told their parents, and they just, that conversation, I wonder what that looked like those evenings. It was funny. I was funny, I was laughing.
Well, and in here, she says, the first author celebration might be as simple as parading around the room carrying finished pieces that are fastened to say, we are author. Can't you just see them doing that though? Like just saying like, we are authors. Can't you see that? And then it goes to a bulletin board, and then it goes to something with crackers or cookies, and people come in, and so it can get a little bit deeper every time. I just love the idea. And I guess I don't want to say celebrate, we acknowledge, but I don't know, I haven't done anything fun like that.
No, I haven't really either.
Yeah.
When we took our books all the way through to publication,
Yeah.
we made it a big deal. Like they sat and they shared their book. It was a big deal.
When we did the books too, not this past year, but the year before.
Yes.
We did like our.
Yes. Yes, like it's that big, and they have worked so hard to achieve it. So, nice stuff.
One thing I guess that we kind of have done, we've done, what did you call yours?
I can spotlight it.
Okay, so we called them Spotlight on Writing, and we did it 2 different ways. Julie did hers a little different than I did. I had a table outside of my room, and we had kind of a little stand, and we would put the paper up on this stand, and then we had a actual spotlight on it. And then as a group, we used our rubric, and we picked which piece of writing that we thought. So what happened is I said to all the kids, boys and girls, we're going to clean out our folders, and so I want you to really look through, take some time, and pick out your best writing. And so we talked about what the best writing looks like.
Side note, that's part of your folder management.
Yes.
Yeah, it's at very identified points when they're getting bulky or whenever, it's time to go through them. And you really put the kids in charge of that and going through and picking out their best and then coming to you with a couple of their best. And then you can have that discourse going, is this really your best? Why do you think this is your? It just opens a nice area for them to be accountable. Sorry.
So then from there, as a class, we had a couple different choices, and I picked like the 3 or 4 that we were going to choose from, and sometimes it was like the best, like the highest writing. And sometimes it was my 4 lowest kids, but they were really, really working hard on doing a specific skill that they were working on. And so anyways, then as a class we used a rubric and we picked which one we thought was the best writing, and then we made a list, so it was all their words. And it was funny because I don't know if one of the kids watched like a history movie, but they're like, we, the kindergarten class, think that this writing should be our spotlight on writing because, and then we just bulleted reasons like this. They used humor, they used good finger spaces, whatever. So they made up the list and then we put that outside next to it and it sat down and there was a spotlight on it. So that was our spotlight on writing. Julie's was very much the same. She had a frame like this and she put the writing in behind, and same thing, they'd have the list that the kids came up with and that was up on the wall. And our intention was to switch it out every week, and sometimes we were good at it, sometimes it wasn't as often, but the kids would ask, they were like, he's been on the spotlight on writing for a really long time. I think we should pick some new writing. So I guess that was one way that we celebrated.
And the highlight of that is just that we celebrate all their writing.
Yes.
It doesn't have to
So
be
you pick
polished.
3 and then they choose one from the 3.
That's how I did
You
it.
could do it,
Yeah.
however, like you
I did a
could
little different every
initially choose, if it was share time, maybe you're going to talk about that particular table's, writing, and you're going to identify some key elements that are happening there. And there's always, that piece that gets extra funny or that makes you feel sad, or they really, and then finally put spaces in his writing, and you're so jacked about that, and maybe you say, this one's gotta go in the hall, look at how he, wherever you need to do it, wherever
Do
you
you
need to
ever
do it.
have kids that don't want to share something? Like if it's something
it-
bad or?
That's another mini lesson, about writing about our feelings and sometimes sharing what we're feeling, and sometimes how that writing can really make us feel better. It's part of that communicating our feelings, and that's a whole lesson, and it's a great thing because they will use it. They will write about the things, and if you model it and make it okay, and you find something that kind of tore you up or that was moving to you or made you sad, they will feed off that. It will open doors for them to do the same, and some kids really need that opportunity.
Right.
So you just have to offer it to them.
But if they don't want to, then you just.
Yeah, it's theirs.
their
It's
choice.
theirs. And sharing, and we'll get into that again, but when it comes time to share, they choose what they share. So they might have written a really kind of heart-wrenching piece that day, but it might be very personal to them, and they might go to their folder and choose that story that they wrote about something they wrote.
And my first year, so 2 years ago, I had quite a few kids that never really wanted to share their writing ever. They would share with one-on-one, but when it would come to the whole group, they just didn't want to. Granted, this was the child that took almost all year. I didn't know what her voice sounded like till the end of the year also. But this last year, I didn't have a problem. I didn't have one kid that ever said, nope, I don't want to share. They all wanted to share. So I suppose that kind of depends on the group of kids too.
And your child. Some are going to say that because they just want that extra nudge from you
Yes.
about how much you love
Yep.
their writing and how much you appreciate them, and then they're ready to go for you. Or they're a typically reluctant child, like I say, my son always has to say no and pick a fight before he will ever come around to yes. And there's just that personality type. And there again, it's your ball game, so you set the stage and just make sure that it's a supportive, comfortable place. And when they do take that chair, people are going to be cheering them on. So.
When we were doing poetry at the end of the year, I would have them come up and read it, and it was one of the ways to get it done, because everybody wanted to share, so when we get like 2/3 done, and we start sharing up there, and everyone
Yes. Yeah, well, and then it takes me to that thought of that sign the chair. I love that. Yeah.
Well, I even noticed this summer during Camp Adventure, the teacher that I shared the room with, she had the amplification system, and then plus she had her, there you go, we don't have those. But the kids, as soon as she said, you guys can come up, and put yours on there and let everyone see it, the kids working away, it was amazing how much that motivated them.
And that maybe moves us into another program tools.
Yeah, materials, tools,
Materials.
that where we're at? Yeah. Okay, gosh, we're not moving very fast. But that nudges us into that because it's that novelty piece. And so when you're talking about papers, pens, folders, all of those things to kids are very novel. And we know if we use novelty in our teaching, it's a best practice to pull them in and engage them. And so there again, you don't want to say, here's your choice of 10 pens and 3 different papers, and you're going to use that to your advantage. Your tools are going to do 2 things for you. You're going to nudge your writers in the direction you want them to go. For example, if you look at the paper examples, you might start the year with a big box and 1 line underneath, which kind of says, I'm just going to write a little. That box is going to shrink, the lines are going to become more. Those are ways to nudge your writers into producing more or different kinds of things. Same thing with our writing utensils. Allie and I start the year with Crayola marker, 1 color. Choose 1 color, very quick sketch in your right, but it's a very familiar tool to them, it's a drawing tool for them, it meets them if they're at the picture stage or the writing stage. And then as we move forward, we're going to push them away from the Crayola and we're going to go to a writing pen. And so there's your tools and your materials help you nudge your writers. The other side of that, the other function of your tools and your materials is that novel piece. When things are getting a little draggy and you need that little pull them back in, reel them in, make it really exciting, you bring out a set of belted pens. Writers, today we get a new pen, you get a teacher pen, you get a, yeah, whatever you need to do. Later on during the year, you pull out the colored pens. They can choose from 10 different colors of ballpoint pens. Whatever it is, same thing with the paper. We're going to have this paper with lines, we're going to have this, but you introduce it and use it to your advantage. And I don't remember who said it, maybe you mentioned it about always having a blank paper for the kids, always having that out. So my first year, I just assumed that I would kind of wean them off of the blank paper, that they didn't need to use it because I wanted them to write more. And so I gave them the big space with 1 line, big space with 2 lines. And I kept out the ones with 1 lines and 2 lines, but once we got to a little space with lots of lines, I just kind of got rid of the blank paper. And then I realized how much of a mistake that was because I had kids that still needed it. Or I had kids, like this year, one of my kids, he was making like a comic book. So he was making a world over here and then a world over here. And he wouldn't have been able to do that just with lined paper. I mean, I just thought about that. You need blank paper because then they can use that creativeness. They can write in this direction and then in this direction, and they can add captions and they can add headings and they can do all that on their own. And when we don't remember to give that to them, sometimes we probably hinder their creativity and their learning a little bit.
Actually, Linda White talks quite a bit about that as well.
Yes.
In using the blank sheet of paper. And so we tried that in all of our classes too, and it talked about the use of that space and how good authors use captions and headings and
Yep.
locate things in different areas to stimulate interest. It's amazing what they do. Once they just see
What
it
does they have the
because,
freedom?
well, yes, and you can look at a room forever and not remember the room arrangement, but when something pertinent is there that draws your attention to it, that's when you really go, wow, I could use that too. That fits in my room arrangement.
So how many kinds do you have out?
Well,
Every day is
eventually,
all out,
I had
or
about,
do you-
at the end of the year, I had about 10 out, maybe more.
So I probably have felt tip.
Oh, are you
Yeah,
talking about paper?
Okay, okay.
I'm sorry.
1, 2, 3, and this one maybe has a couple different types in there. But during the year, once we've taught them, we also have like lists out all the time. I did where we wrote about our friends, so it was all about, and then a blank, and then all this space for them to write about their friends or draw pictures. You know, that was always out. I always had notes out, so they could write notes to their friends. We got like the the really old paper from like the first Apple computers with the green and white
Where's
lines.
that over there?
They love that
I
paper.
love that. Where did you get that?
If you could have got it at Walmart.
It's gotta be sitting.
I think we took it all.
Most of the
It's
schools.
gone at Walmart. It's gone.
I was gonna say, because that is so perfect with the green and the gray.
And then the back side is blank. Uh-huh. So they can do
So
their
if
picture on that.
Wide
whatever
open,
they
it's
wanna do.
free.
Yeah.
That was the best paper ever.
They love that paper.
It is, and I'm sure the janitors dumped it in our school.
And we took as much of that as
Can I ask a
Yeah.
quick, and it's not a paper question.
Well, that's fine.
It said if you're having them use pencils,
Mm-hmm.
to not allow them to erase.
Okay, that's perfect, perfectly in because we don't do pencils.
You never do pencils. so you
And I do
erase
pencils
things.
with handwriting. Not for writing at least. And otherwise we do writing because she's exactly right. You will have children, there's a host of what you'll have, but the common things that you might have is the child that always has to have it right, will erase 6 pages to do it over again, never can really believe in themselves. You'll have the eraser, biter, picker, eater, and you will have the ones that just love to erase, because erasing is kind of a cool thing to do.
Little marks all over.
Sharpen it 500 times. Pencils are, they're a problem. We teach our writers that we make mistakes, it's a rough draft. And we do a mini lesson on when you make a mistake, you cross it out and you move it on. And you cross it out immediately. We're not scribbling, it's all very explicit. But one of the benefits of that though is that they can go back and they can look at that. So, okay, I wrote the word she. Oh, I put a TH instead of an SH, so I crossed it out. Now they're gonna come to she again. What? Oh yeah, it's not TH, it's SH. So they can look back at that because if it was erased, they can never go back and see that mistake that they made.
Can you explain it?
Yeah, everything, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
one lesson.
I was in a training last week, very good training, very awful video clip they used where a teacher knelt down, it was primary, and the teacher knelt down. And, of course, it wasn't in his district, it was, who knows where, but the teacher knelt down and was like, oh, no, go up here, erase that, erase all of that, and then start again with what you just told me. And I was just like, no! I told me
yeah.
to erase!
And they would suggest that's
Oh, I
where,
cringe.
maybe not so much in kindergarten, but as you move up and kids are becoming very confident and want to rearrange, or maybe you're pushing them that into more,
And cut.
yes, they cut and tape, and they edit that way, because I'm sorry, let's be honest, if someone told you, erase that page and start over, would you? Done.
Erase it, but you never start
Bad,
over.
bad, done. Are you kidding me?
As adults, if we want to add something, or we realize, I mean, we just hit enter a few times on our Microsoft Word, and then we type it in. You know, we don't just erase it all, so why would we expect them to?
And one of their favorite lessons is carrots.
Yeah.
I forgot, watch how I add a word and I forgot. And it'll come in all the time when they're reading, I forgot that word. Watch what we can go. They love carrots. They love it. I think so.
Technology, that's where the kids are gonna be.
Yes.
They're not going to be getting that backspace forever. You know,
Uh-uh.
that's not gonna happen. You correlate to their future. Preparing them better for their
It's so important, we really have to let go of what we think we have to hold on to. Because we can't imagine the world without it.
I'm curious, is the big pink eraser on the kindergarten supply list?
I don't think so, we don't really get them
When
pencils,
they
which
get
is
cut,
funny.
they get stabbed.
We don't
need them.
If erasers are not just erasing every little thing on the page, they're being picked apart or
I did.
or drawn on. Or drawn on. Yeah. What does anybody else do? Does anybody, I know when we were speaking at one conference, somebody, Tara was trying, we didn't speak to the idea of pens, pencils, and Tara was trying to flag us down saying, tell them why you don't use pencils. Yeah, but we missed that cue.
I like to even use, when I taught second grade, I kind of went to pens, which the kids thought they were such big kids now, and went to
Yes.
pens after
Uh-huh.
Christmas. And I always did it writing, and then finally I started doing the math too, because it was interesting for me to see where they were making their mistakes, because if they erased it, I couldn't figure out where they skipped a step. And when they started using pen and math, I'm like, oh, it's when you carried, or when you know, when you regrouped here is where I see it now. And it was easier for me to have them rewrite the problem, because we got to writing problems then, and it was easier for me to just rewrite it again, and that way I could see where they had, you know, what step, what part of the process was breaking down.
And that's funny because when I was in school, my dad taught me not to use pen, use pencil so the teacher can see my mistakes. So that's kind of funny.
Yeah, it's funny,
Yeah.
and that changed my thinking too, because I was always pencil, 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 because it can be erased and changed a little bit.
Yeah, that's great.
And it's funny how you brought up changing how motivated a student can be by one simple, like, pen change today. You know,
Yes.
I taught second grade 3 years ago, and then fourth grade the last 2 years, so I double dipped kids. I had 10 of the same kids that I had. And I kind of forgot that this last year, I just forgot about introducing some. And finally, about January, one of my students said, when are you going to bust out the bust out the cool paper? I had totally forgot that. I had bought like, dollar store, like the cool ones, like they had like this Mickey Mouse, it was that thin stuffy paper, but it had Mickey Mouse around the outside, and I remember like that was a publishing paper that they could copy. Totally forgot I even did, but like, I'm gonna bust out the cool, I'm like, oh, I totally forgot about the cool paper.
Well, and like if we were writing thank yous, like when we had a visitor sincerely came for a question, we were writing thank yous because the kids enjoyed it so much. I just went downstairs and grabbed some colored sheets of paper to write them on. So we just upped the interest factor just by putting some colored paper in front of them.
I know,
It's simple things.
Missy Hurd at Saxford, she said she always uses, when you get your printing back, and those yellow pieces in between, she just always throws those in there.
The writing.
And
And like, we always build, like, we don't necessarily take things away after, you can see some of the different writing paper, obviously, that I used. But after we teach lists, we have list paper for them. Like, it's cut narrow and it's a numbered list, so that's available. This is the other one that is there. It's out of Explorations, and it's from the desk up, and so you're teaching them to communicate very briefly and concisely with someone else. And my kids, literally, like if you came to my room, there were notes taped all over from their friends. And because they see Mrs. Frank's desk with all the notes, sticky notes all over. But the sweetest things, like I'm not asking them to do this. This was their choice during, as long as they're writing, they're on task. I'm sorry for what happened today, so I don't know what went on. I'm not surprised with the name that's on the top. But this one, I found on my desk. Mrs. Frank, don't forget to feed the fish. How great is that? And then I posted it over by the fish tank, so she could see this was really relevant and important, and I needed that reminder. And one day I had a note written on the old computer paper. Mrs. Frank, we're out of the paper. Could you get more? Yeah, we're out of the paper for writing notes.
But they understood the purpose.
Yes. Yeah, they had purpose. That's it, isn't it? It's theirs and they have ownership of it. Okay. I think we're like.
What kind of management do you do when, like, they're writing these little notes? Like, what kind of management piece do you have, like, when can they deliver them? Or,
When you set that, and we'll get into that too, when you set that tone of the dynamic in your room, and I suppose there again it's personal preference, how much noise, how much flow, how much, but you teach them that the sounds and the movement that are happening are about writing. So if I get up to come and visit you and I'm delivering a note, that's okay. I deliver my note and I go sit down. If I'm coming to visit you because I want to spell your name because I want to put it on my note, I can go visit you because that's on topic discourse about what we're really doing. So as long as they are talking about writing, about their topic, so it's all okay. The movement is to get their supplies and to keep moving. It's good. It's good, healthy movement.
and I've seen some teachers set up kind of like a mailbox kind of system. I give my kids a choice. They could either go deliver it to their friends at their desk, or they can just go put them in their mailbox. Because sometimes they want it to be anonymous, like they don't want them to know who it's from. And so sometimes they just do that too. There was one thing I was gonna say, after every holiday at Walmart, kind of like where their binders are and the papers, it's down on a bottom shelf.
It won't be there now, Ally, because you just told me.
They have, after every holiday, like the next day or 2 days after, and I found this out in college, and I've been doing it ever since, they have like themed paper, so it will have like a, let's say it's hearts or something, like pretty hearts on the outside and it's light in the inside, so it's like watermarked. But they have them crazy cheap, like a pack of like 50 for like 15 cents or 25 cents. And so sometimes like on a holiday even, I'll just say, boys and girls, today if you want, you can use one of these papers and then you can use the rest of your papers. But that just adds to the novelty. But that's really cheap, so watch. Maybe I shouldn't have told you that.
I know.
Because there's not many. They go really, really quick. So one of the points that she shared on page 33, the Writing Center describes a place where your supplies are stored. It's not a place where you go to do writing. Writing happens everywhere in your room. So it's just the place where the supplies are stored. So kind of keep that in.
And we have a quick question. Do you, with your books that you got, did you get a CD with them? Yeah. You did not.
Because they keep referring back to the senior.
Yes.
Well,
We were
we
a
don't
little
have one
frustrated with
either,
But we have all these papers and everything, and so we can send those out, and we've made some over the years. So,
It's
we
you
can
probably
send those
need
out.
to get the whole box.
Well, we have that, we borrowed that from a friend, and we pulled that CD up, and that has
Some stuff,
not
The same
paper,
thing.
not those,
Well,
there's
it
some
is-
stuff, but.
Alan,
Do you know?
I have, what I gave you all when you took
Yes,
the class.
and I have that.
I have that, and I have some in the car. I could bring them in, and if they have a computer, they could just download it onto their computer.
That'd be
You
swell.
want
That would be awesome.
It's got quite a few samples.
Or bring a flash drive
They're
tomorrow
great.
or something.
Yeah.
maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Bring a flash drive. See, we can create something like that. Okay, and it is fun to play with and messing with papers. It is. Let's see. Okay, we have just talked about all sorts of things. On page 34, I know we've talked a lot about folders and paper and loose paper and writer's journals and all that. She does say on page 44, for reasons that will become more clear over the course of this book, I do not recommend that young children write in a spiral notebooks, journals, or diaries. For the last 2 years, I've given my kids during Writer's Workshop, we use the loose paper and then we put them in our folder. But then for work on writing, for Daily 5, I give them a notebook. And it's worked okay, but my sweet kids who want to go back to their story the next day, even if I give them something, like there's a bookmark or there's a sticky note, you just have those kids that they cannot find it. So it gets lost or something happens. And so this year I'm going to attempt to just tell them, because at the end of the year I was saying, it's okay. They're like, I ran out of paper on my work on writing book. And I said, it's okay, just go grab paper. And I found them going back to their stories from Writer's Workshop and adding to those stories. And I thought, that's fantastic. Why don't I just allow them to use that? What have you guys done? I know that a lot of people do use the notebooks, and some people prefer not to. How do you guys feel?
I found that I've really had to challenge myself to use the notebooks because they're on the mandated list, which has been really frustrating. So one becomes their science journal, their math journal. I'm actually pinned that I'm going to start next year. I had a conversation with another teacher on the village. She's like, I have the same problem. You don't want to send the notebooks home. The parents have gone out and bought them. You need to use them. So, math journal, science journal, but Pinterest has a really good thing, cool thing where there's forms already made, like by topic. It's kind of like by topic. And you put that piece of paper, your favorite animal or whatever. You put that piece of paper on the front of the notebook and you leave them like in a writing space. So during Daily 5 writing, kids have the opportunity to go choose any one of those topics and open it up and write about it. So that all their writings, all their writings accumulate about the favorite animal. There's tons of different topics. And the topic is on the front cover. And so then throughout the year, they're all adding.
And
I thought I'd try it this year.
think how fun that could be to teach them. Your friends have written inside of this, and so now when you go, here's the etiquette that we use when we're writing, and something that someone else has. That could be fun.
They read what the friends have written and then they add their story.
And they can respond to what somebody else has written.
And they can choose if they just wanted to write about what they know and care about, or if they wanted to do. That's kind of fun.
Because I've not been a fan of the notebooks, and I just felt like I've had, for science journaling, it's been very
Science and
helpful.
math,
And the math journaling, I like that.
And the other piece that Lucy points out, if something is in a notebook, the chance that we ever go back and follow through or revisit is very slim. Whereas if it's a piece of paper, we're probably gonna be going like this.
I don't know if I have it
So
in
it's
my head.
something,
Do you
it's
guys use the
something.
green handwriting without shears notebooks? The journals? Do you order those?
This is what.
Okay.
Well,
We don't get them,
we
right? We didn't order them.
Well, we did order them.
We got them, they were extra, weren't they? Nevertheless, we have them.
Okay. So you have it.
We don't use them, but at the end of the year, we send them home as like a summer, your writers, here's your special place to write.
At least in kindergarten, that's what we did, because.
We have, I just want to share, and then, do you know about Angela's project, Deb?
No.
I might get it wrong. We didn't know she was doing this all year long. Till we saw them, we were so mad at her, but one of my colleagues, and that's how we're gonna try to use it next year. We have lots of visitors, we study community workers, lots of, presentations, the nurse, What she did, every time they had a special occasion like that, and the notebook was nearly full, she took pictures of the kids, of the speaker, of the presenter, and then printed the copies, put the picture of that activity in the journal up in the white spot, and then they wrote about it. They wrote about what they learned, when the nurse came in, or whatever, and then that was almost like a keepsake of the year that was sent home at the end of the year. They had, or the 50s day, we had dress up, we have fun 50s day project, so she had the picture of the kid, whatever, dressed up, or something that happened, playing 50s games. Her picture, they glued that in there, and then they write about.
And
what
some of
the
you
best
kind of might be
part
thinking,
was.
well, how's that any different from a prompt? But it's very different from a prompt because that teacher, that shared experience was there. They had it, they did it.
And I guess as a parent, I was like, oh, how cool, because at the end of the year, we were trying to put stuff together to send home to the parent, what kind of happened throughout the year, it's done.
A second grade teacher in Tana does something very similar to that as well, but she uses her PTO funds for the picture part of it and actually prints the pictures and the students use it as a place to reflect on what they learned and then sends it home at the end of the year.
And lifelong. Like we are, in our human nature, people that want to write about and share about our experiences and remember our experiences.
And basically kind of scrapbooking it.
Basically,
Right?
yeah.
That's what
Yeah,
scrapbook
it's
a
a
year,
lovely-
the
yeah,
memories.
yeah.